Welcome to another episode of Same Page. I am Lenard and
And I'm your co host, Sarah Synergist.
today we have a nice juicy subject. Actually, it's not that quite juicy. It's sex while you're in the process of trying to get pregnant and you're having infertility issues.
Right.
That's kind of a mouthful, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah, definitely infertility itself or your fertility journey, if you're having trouble with fertility, is um, already very stressful in itself.
Hmm.
But when you add the intimacy component to it, then it just adds another layer of of stress. And we've lived through it.
Hmm.
We've gone through it, and it's not fun. And sometimes, even as a married couple, it definitely takes away from from the intimacy in general.
Hmm.
Yeah. So what was that like for us when we were doing fertility treatments? And at least what was that like for you when we were doing fertility treatments? And I was like, well, we must have sex, at this time because
Hmm.
I'm ovulating.
Uh, the main thing was the fact that it was basically the sex was kind of scripted,
Right.
or the sex was scheduled. The fact that you take away that spontaneity, you take away that yeah, just that impulse to just want to jump your partner, for lack of better terms. So when something is kind of like regimented or scheduled, it automatically takes the fun out of it.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, and there were many instances. So basically, just to describe a little bit what it looks like is you have a window where you're ovulating as a woman, and that's during the window where you want to have sex because when you ovulate, then the sperm will meet the egg, and that's how you get pregnant. And obviously, when you're fertile and there's no problems, you don't even think about that. You just have fun, and then
Hmm.
just nature makes it that you get pregnant quite easily. However, if you're having fertility issues, then you're trying to time it, right? Because uh, you don't know, is it because I'm not having sex at the right time? Or is it because XYZ? Maybe you have to take um, certain pills or certain medication
Hmm.
right after you have ovulated. Like in my example,
Hmm.
I had to take progesterone. I think it was like 3 days after
Hmm.
ovulation. So I had to know when I ovulated, right?
Hmm.
And I remember a particular instance where I was at home. I think I had a day off. And you wake up, ovulation basically looks like you pee on a stick, and then that stick tells you if you're ovulating or not, or if you're gonna ovulate within the next 24 to 48 hours. And peed on a stick, and then I got the go that I was gonna ovulate. So I right away call Leonard at work, and I'm
Hmm.
like, I'm gonna be ovulating. Leonard rushes home. Do you remember that?
Hmm.
Rushes home from work at noon, I think,
Hmm.
for his lunch. Then we're just trying to, have sex during his lunchtime, but he's also worried about going back to work
Hmm.
at a certain time. So it was just, it just took everything out of it. It was just not good sex. You're thinking about, you know, um, are you gonna get pregnant? Or you're thinking about um, just trying to get your body prepared for sex because it doesn't just like it just happened like that,
No.
so yeah, that was quite stressful. Needless to say, that was not fun at all.
No.
So it just takes out the fun from it.
Yeah. And one thing I'd like to add is the fact that um, it's hard enough just knowing that you're going through these issues, and and then just to have that added layer that this thing that's supposed to be very pleasurable, and then obviously a way for you to connect with your partner, it just doesn't feel very organic. It doesn't feel
Hmm.
very natural at all. And that's the part, at least for me, that really kind of takes the fun out of it. You want to have that sense of adventure, that sense of spontaneity, and you really want to, you really obviously you want to not only, like obviously like it's a physical there's a physical component when it comes to sex, but there's also an emotional component when you're connecting with your partner. And sometimes during these trials, when you're trying to get pregnant while you're going through infertility issues, there tends to be a little bit of a disconnect, even though obviously you're on the same page in the sense that, okay, well, we need to have sex within this small window, but are you actually in the mood? Do you really want to? That's more like a have to than a want, right?
Yes,
So,
yeah.
and that part is very challenging.
Yeah, that's very well said. Especially for me, sex is very emotional. It's like I have to be in the mood, and I have to like you at the time, and
Hmm.
yeah, all these things. And if you're mad at the other person, and then you get that positive for ovulation, then you have to have sex, right? And it's just yeah, it's just not the same.
Hmm.
I also remember one time where I was ovulating, and I was in Toronto and you were in Ottawa,
Hmm.
and I just bawled. I just cried because it was to me that was like a missed opportunity to get pregnant,
Hmm.
right? I knew I wasn't gonna see Leonard for the next 24 to 48 hours. So in order to get another opportunity, we'd have to wait another month.
Hmm.
And every single month feels like an eternity when you're trying to get pregnant, because
Hmm.
it's like every 30 days, right? It's not like you could try every couple of days or
Exactly.
whatnot.
And in Sarah's case, like not to get too specific, but her ovulation periods were way longer than most women.
Right.
So like which like for most women, they tend to have maybe 12 opportunities in a year, basically once a month, to get pregnant. But since Sarah's periods are so long, then she may have 8 to 9 times in a
Yes,
year
yeah.
where she actually can actually conceive.
Yeah, that's a good point. So your numbers of time to try to get pregnant are so limited.
Very
So
limited.
imagine you can only get pregnant 8 or 9 times in a year, like,
Hmm.
and then you miss one, you're like super devastated.
Yeah.
So that was very difficult for us, and it leads to just withdrawing yourself
Hmm.
from the other person. Sometimes I personally didn't want to be touched. I just didn't want that yeah, that intimacy, because it just felt so forced, right?
Hmm.
And you, not that you resent the other person, but it just impacts every single part of your life, really, right?
Yeah.
And you're basically having sex to reproduce rather than to have fun, which is one thing that humans are capable to do,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Any other instances that you can think of that when we were um, trying to conceive, and um, in relation to what sex sort of how it impacted a relationship?
Mm. No, I think you brought up those two instances. Those are the two examples that really stick out in my mind. Obviously, me being at work, and then the other time. It just boils down to the fact that you really want to try um, to turn a bad situation or a challenging situation into something that's more positive.
Yeah.
And I think that's the true challenge, uh and like you have to get creative in those instances. And you already had there's already this kind of like gray cloud kind of looming over the relationship because of this. So it adds to your stress level, it adds to your anxiety. And then, as much as you want to be closer to your partner, in some instances you feel like, like there's that gap,
Yeah.
I mean, and then you feel less connected to that to your partner. So yeah, so it's really important to try and find creative ways to try and stay connected, to try to uplift each other,
Right.
and to try to look at the brighter side of things, and be grateful for all the other things in your life. And just know that with time, I know it sounds cliche, with time, you know, most of the time, things do happen, and you will get your results eventually, God willing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's not always the case for everyone,
No.
and but which is very unfortunate. But yeah, you just have to stay positive. As
Hmm.
yeah, cliche as that sounds. One thing that I also wanted to mention is actually during sex. So it's not just like the before, you're trying to time it and everything, but during sex as well. There's so many things going through your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember like researching if there were certain positions that were better to get pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're trying to hit those positions, and then the after effect, like you read that, okay, you have to lie down for a certain period of
Or
time
put your legs
or
up
put
for.
your legs up, so you can't be in a rush. So I just remember really feeling very sad, very anxious. Sometimes I would just bawl after sex, and it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like really weird,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just so unnatural and anxiety provoking
Mm-hmm.
that yeah, that part of her life sort of like um, what we could say like was like on a decline at the time,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just so many things to mention, so many emotions when you are trying to conceive, and especially if you have to include the intimacy part of it, and that just kind of like dies down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much what we wanted to mention about sex during infertility. If you're going through it or have gone through it, let us know. Drop us a comment, send us a DM. If you want to talk about it, that's fine. We've been pretty much through it all.
Yeah.
And men, like maybe the experience is different than
Mm-hmm.
for women. I know how I feel definitely, but it might be a little bit different for men, how they feel and how they process this whole sex during infertility treatments.
Now, we know that this is a difficult topic, but feel free to comment and to leave your messages.
All right. Well, until next time, don't forget to live your truth.